Welcome to So You Think Your Car is Fast, where we dive into the world of high-end, fast cars and explore what it truly means to have a fast car. From the latest in supercar technology to the mechanics that make these machines go, we'll separate fact from fiction and uncover the misconceptions about speed and power that exist in the minds of the general public. Join us as we put the pedal to the metal and discover what it takes to have a car that truly lives up to the title of fast.
We're live, boys.
Live.
We are live and alive. So I got a good text a few seconds ago from engine builder extraordinaire John Bray. And he says, a couple days, it's going to be done. We had to pull the heads back off for another little stretch of goodies they want to put in there. I'm not going to ask him. Just let him do what he wants to do. So
I like goodies. Goodies are good.
Yeah, he says goodies.
I thought you were going to say you got a text saying, let me in, foo.
Yeah, I got one of those too. Okay, should have this licked in a couple days. Got the seats redone. Also put in a couple new goodies on the top end since I had to take it off again. And then he says this motor is good for 1,800 horsepower. Ooh.
Somebody needs bigger turbos.
I can't read that. I'm calling BS. I can't even read it.
Unfortunately, we have resolution constraints. We couldn't read.
It's always something.
So, I figured maybe this week we could talk about the ugly truths of modifying cars.
Oh, it's ugly.
Do we want to do we want to go there?
I mean, oh, geez.
Well, there's a few things that happen, right? The first one of which is you spend your entire time, obsessing over whether this part that's advertised to add 8 horsepower and this part that is advertised to add 5 horsepower are actually going to add up to 13 horsepower or not. And generally speaking, whatever, optimistic scenario you devise in your head, the answer is no. It's that's not how it works. And you shouldn't necessarily be chasing a horsepower number either. People get caught up in it.
That's what I always ask. People hit me all the time in my DMs, saying, "Hey, what do you think about this? And what should I do here?" The first thing I ask is, "What are your goals? Do you want to be, a street monster or an event car? Do you want to be, you can't really. You've got to have a goal, and you can't just say, I want to make 1,500 horsepower. Well, that's fine and all, but then, do you want that 15 horsepower to be reliable? Because on most platforms, 1,500 is, that's kind of right on the cusp of being an event vehicle only.
The problem I have with that, though, is how do you know what your goal is? I mean, it's for me anyway, it changes almost on a daily basis.
Well, unless you have a long and glorious history of destroying cars by modifying them, it can be difficult to know where your end goals are going to be.
Well, I've destroyed my fair share of cars, but the problem is I get to a point and then somebody says, hey, if you just do this, you can get this much more. And so I go, oh, okay, let's do that then. And then when we do that, we're like, oh, well, now this thing over here, well, let's do that too. And then by the time I'm done with it, now
well, I find it a lot easier to tell other people what to do with their cars and
their money.
Whether it's a waste of money or not, that last, whatever little bit you're trying to get, man, don't do that. That's not worth it. When it comes to me, I'm just like, yes, all the things. And, it's a judgment thing, right? Like, it's easier to evaluate somebody else's situation than it is your own because you're so emotionally invested in it. Of course, it's a lot easier to modify cars these days than it used to be because the electronic control systems in the cars, there's even a slipperier slope there when you go to a standalone setup. But, a factory computer nowadays as long as you can have some control over the parameters in some way. I mean, the cars run pretty well. It's not like it used to be where you're lying to the computers in the car to trick them into doing what you want. Nowadays, you bring that computer along with you for the ride, and it helps you. So that that's a really nice thing. But what people need to do is figure out what's realistic for their car. Do they want to be the very first guy who breaks everything and finds out where the limits of everything, is? I mean, some people like doing that, and it's very expensive.
Taylor's kind of there right now, and I definitely was there with the Tiptronic back in the 996 days.
The whole frustrating point about my car is I didn't mean to get there, right? Like we set out on this thing. And my biggest thing that I want to know is when I'm building a car or planning a setup, I want to know what my trade-offs are, right? Like what am I giving up? And then I can decide, am I willing to give this up? And that's the problem that my car's been, is there haven't been enough that have been built to this point to really, I guess, accurately know what you're giving up. And then my goals changed along the way. I started doing these events, and I loved them. And now I've gone from what I wanted to build was a reliable street monster to now an event car. I mean, you'll never see me driving it on the street. I hope that will change one day as we iron some of the issues out, but that's been a real.
Yeah, you'll go through phases. I remember, and that first phase is a long one. When I first started trying to sort out the red car, I'm like, I don't even, guys, I don't want to go out late at night because, so I would go out during the day because it's easier to find a flatbed during the day, or have someone come pick you up during the day, or, so.
And waiting on flatbeds, that just sucks. It just is, it's terrible. And I've got some recent experience doing that.
Yeah, we have Donnie on speed dial here in Houston. He's familiar with picking up us hood rats on the side of the road.
Well, and your car breaks down, and it's frustrating anyway, especially when it sticks out like a sore thumb, like my camo one does.
Right.
And then now, as I'm sitting there just like seething and trying to figure out what's going on, I start getting texts from people that see me like, dude, what happened? And I'm just like, okay, just.
I thought that car was invisible with the camo wrap on it.
I mean, that's something else. I tried to make it unseen, and now everybody sees it.
Yeah, yep. Those trade-offs you guys are talking about is the real deal. OEM manufacturers, they go ahead and they want to trade off nothing, right? Like noise and like the term is NVH, right? Noise, vibration, and harshness.
Mm-hmm.
And so we as enthusiasts are like, we don't even
throw out noise.
We want all the noise. And
we don't care about harshness. Make it harsh.
Make it harsh. Yeah. Vibration, as long as it doesn't shake itself apart, we're good. And so you'll find every car that you want to play with, you'll find that there's some sort of point where you hit diminishing returns, in the sense that you've given up everything about it, and you get 1% more out of it. And so people need to figure out where that point is for themselves. I know in getting older myself, my tolerances for NVH are a lot lower than they used to be. Like I don't want to drive around a car that'll give you a headache in half an hour from the noise.
Yeah.
That seemed like a great idea to me 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
Well, this is why, now we have our race car, and then we have our spare non-modified race car that we can take.
You guys have non-modified cars? What?
I put an exhaust on my GT3 and I got in trouble.
I do. Every time I buy a quote unquote daily driver, I'm like, hey, I'm not modifying this one, and I truly mean it. I really, at the time, I mean it, and now it just doesn't. It doesn't. I'm sick. And I need help.
I'm Taylor, and I'm a modaholic.
When you text me, Taylor, and you're like, well, the turbos are coming in for my car next week, and then, I'm working on the exhaust for the BMW, and the truck has this, cooler coming in, and I'm going like,
I can't keep up.
He has 4 projects going. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, it's not. And that's the thing, right? Like, it's in my mind, it's romanticized. Like, I think about how much fun it's gonna be, and sometimes it is, like, during the build process, but there are some times where it is not fun at all, and then I find myself going, "Maybe I don't like cars anymore," and that lasts for, 3 days, and then something else pops up.
There's always a period of mourning when something goes wrong.
Yeah.
I had one of those periods of mourning when I broke the engine to my 911 the first time. Actually, the only time I've really properly broke it, knock on wood. And I was just moping around the house for 2 or 3 days, and finally my wife looks at me and she says, "Just do what you're gonna do with it. Just go."
Get her done.
Yep.
See,
That's
but
all I
at
need.
least the morning when you know what's wrong with it, like you can kind of reason with yourself and be like, okay, look, this does suck. It broke, but now I'm gonna build it better. The part that I really, really have a hard time and it really damages my character is when there's some problem and I don't know what's causing it.
Oh, that's
That's
bad.
the part
Yeah.
that just eats away at me. And it's like, I mean, it just I have a hard time letting it go until I've come up with some reasonable explanation in my mind.
Yeah, the not knowing part, but it's also equally disturbing even when you know what's wrong with it and it's sitting in your garage broken. Like, that makes me sad. The car is broken
Yeah.
in my garage, and it's not like I'm gonna take it out and drive it during rush hour. That's another thing about modifying cars that people need to understand, is that everything has a service life. An engine only goes around so many times. It's gonna go spin, spin, spin. That's great, but eventually it will go spin, spin, clank, and the clank is not the fun part. And
No.
so, you don't want to heavily modify your car and then drive it to work every day, because you're just wasting the spin, spin, spin time.
That's true. Yeah, I always think I'm on my last pull every time I do one. Wasted pulls.
I just hope I get enough pulls to where we iron out some of the details that I can get it fully optimized.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we'll find out soon. Actually, Dino Days tomorrow. Knock on wood. I don't have any
Oh,
wood around me, but
All right. So now, okay, so the turbos have been properly assembled.
I think so.
We're assuming that.
Yeah, I think so.
You got your new fab work done. And
Yep.
okay. So what are you hoping for? Just a solid 1500?
I don't.
Come on. Those special
just
secret turbos.
honestly, at this point, I'm not chasing a horsepower number. I want Wayne to say, "Hey, it's looking good, and the things we just did made a difference." That's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
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 So,
All right. Well, I was
in fact,
thinking over the
I
weekend.
don't think we'll even run it for max power. I think it's more we're going to try to make more power at less boost.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal. I bet he doesn't go up any higher than map 3 on it.
Okay, so are you sorted as far as gearbox and launching at this point?
I mean, as much as I can tell on the street.
Okay.
I mean, the last data log pass I made on the street to make sure my transmission worked, it was a good thing that I was in Mexico with the speeds that I reached.
Oh, okay.
It was,
Good. Yeah, a little trip down to Mexico.
yeah, Dan is the one that told me how fast I was going. I stayed in it a little bit longer than I had planned, and I didn't. It was not a wise move on the street.
Mm,
it's a good thing the Mexican cops don't have very fast cars.
yeah.
Right.
The Ramburros. So I was thinking this weekend about the events and what happens in between runs. And it always seems like, when they pull the logs for us, they're like, "Hey man, it's hot. It's hot. So how do we cool these cars in between runs?" And I'm thinking fans, right? Because we're not throwing any fans on these cars as they're sitting, unless they're going to sit for an hour or two, no biggie. But if we're going to do, kind of back, I've learned that if I hot lap it just gets slower and slower. So I need a good cool down before each run for it to be optimal. It just seems like the first run of the day is always kind of the best, best air. So I bought a couple fans. I don't know about you guys, but I think I'm going to try some fans this year.
Yeah, well, we need more power. How are we going to get electrical power for the fans?
Oh, these are battery powered.
Oh, you got battery powered fans?
I do. Yeah. And I bought some big ass batteries for them. So I got a whole battery bank in the trailer.
You weren't there last time, Todd. I bought a little generator
Okay.
that worked out okay. It was just a little gas. In fact, I think the tank on it's only like 1.1 gallons or something. But
Yeah.
it lasted the whole day, and we had it on for quite some time.
Yeah. Well, the one that I run, that is it a Yamaha? It's a Honda. Anyway, it runs for 8 hours on basically a gallon, right? So.
Oh,
Did you get your generator fixed in your RV?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
They actually
That's
just put a whole new one. They put a new one in. It's brand new. 0 hours.
Okay.
I fixed my generator too. I took my generator apart living in Texas, we all sometimes fear the random power outage because it can be too cold and we can't have power, and then it can also be too hot and we can't have power.
Right.
So things that we don't really understand, but it's just a way of life. So I let my generator sit with some 80 something octane in it for a while, which technically you're not supposed to do, and the fuel flow disintegrated, and the carburetor clogged up, and it ran terrible. So I took it all apart, and I got a whole bunch of cleaning rods and cleaners and cleaned the carburetor, put it all back together again, and it still ran like crap. So I took it apart, and that time I fixed it because I bought a brand new carburetor and stuck it in. So my carburetor repair skills maybe are in question. But I got it running in typical race car guy fashion. I put it together without the casings or anything on the sides, and it ran, and I declared it fixed, and it sat on my workbench for another year. So I actually fixed it this weekend. And
I had that happen too. Last time I had it apart, I put a fuel filter in between the tank and the carburetor in hopes that filter can catch some of the stuff that mucks up your tank.
Yeah, mine had a filter in it already. I replaced it with another one while I was in there. But the worst part of it was that the fuel line going from the carburetor to the tank was so short that the only way you could do it is if you had a 4-foot long set of pliers to reach in and grab the clamp. So when I put it back together again, this was really what took a year to put it back together, was to find a long enough fuel hose that was. And then I went crazy. I was like, oh, it must be SAE J30 so that it's ethanol resistant, because I don't want this to happen again. And so that all happened.
That's exactly the same thing happened to me during the freeze. It was the carburetor, but I was able to take it apart, clean the carb. I had the same issue with the tiny ass fuel line that was just so small. I couldn't even buy a new fuel line because everything was closed. So I cut a little piece off, and it still was able to fit and ran enough now. So, but I need a whole new carb at this point.
Yeah,
but that's the other generator. That's not the generator I take to the events.
Well, I've got some electric fans that we could use. I think it's a Lasko. Lasko. They sell them at Costco.
Oh, those dryer fans for the flooring? Yeah.
And we could blow those up under the car, and that might work pretty well. What were our race car engineering friends saying? I saw some messages going back and forth about it, but I missed the summary.
They were just saying that
you can only cool it down so much.
You can only cool it down so much, and then you turn it back on, and then it's right back to hot again. I'm like, well.
Well, I think the main thing is we do want to cool the compressor wheels of the turbos down. I don't know how we accomplish that off the top of my head, but we probably ought to think about it. We want to, cool the engine and the radiators down. The thing is, once the coolant stops circulating in the engine, all of the heat sits in the engine. So that I think I saw them say something about start the car up again after it sat for a while.
Yeah.
And what that would do in my mind is, get the coolant circulating, get that heat out of the engine, get it back up to the radiators, because our radiators are in the front of the car
Mm-hmm.
and the engine being in the back. So that could help.
Yeah.
But it takes 30 minutes maybe for the cars to cool down enough to go run them again. After
Without throwing fans on them.
yeah. Which I don't really want to run at any faster cadence than that anyway. But sometimes you have to. 'Cause it takes 15 minutes to load up ice and get everything right anyway.
Right. I'm trying to find the ideal cooler, but I think it's just a big cooler is really all we need. I mean, I've got 2 big coolers and a big scoop.
We need a Kona ice truck, and then we can.
Yeah,
just
I don't.
tow it.
I talked to Jason about that, and he said he does have some ice vendors that come to the events. I don't know why the ice guys don't see that as of course, I don't know what margins are on ice anyway, and I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if it's worth it. But to me, just from a 30,000 foot kind of view, it just seems like, hey, here's a race car thing where, I mean, how many of us use ice out there? A bunch.
Almost
And
all
we
of it.
use a
It would
lot.
be
We use a
yeah, it
lot
would
of
be
ice.
great. What if they drove by the pits and you could just grab all your ice from that truck?
I
That'd be
mean,
amazing.
surely they charge a premium, which I understand, but like they could charge a decent premium, and I bet people would still buy it because it's
Mhm.
a hassle dealing with the coolers and how much space they take up, and
Mhm.
going to Walmart and
Yeah, going to
funny
Walmart at
looks.
5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning to get ice sucks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And especially when you get there or you get to some kind of side gas station and all the other racers before you have already grabbed it all.
There's nothing left. There's like, we have 3 more 7-pound bags.
Morris Malone, thanks a lot, buddy.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. He probably fills up with hundreds, and I know I get at least 150 pounds per day. Well, I can't imagine what he does.
Yep, he's emptied a gas station in front of me before.
Oh boy.
So I have some news on my stuff too.
Okay.
Incidentally, my cam housings that are mysterious and holy in all ways have been ordered and are coming
Wow. From
Germany.
from Germany.
Yep. And so the basic plan is to order them, get a hold of the receipt, burn it, and never speak of it again.
Uh-oh. Are we paying a premium?
Ooh. Yeah. So that's done, and I have all 4 cams coming as well. So
Okay. All right.
that, can't run a 3-cam engine. So
you should be good for a Texas 2K.
it's going to come down to how fast it gets here from Germany, I think.
Okay.
Going right to John.
John has my engine.
Does he have? Okay, so are these parts going directly to him?
The stuff that I ordered from Germany is coming to me because I didn't want to make him receive international packages, and I didn't know
Okay.
exactly what all of the, I might end up having duty to pay on them or something weird like that. So I just figured I'd take care of it all and then forward it to him. But yeah, everything's on its way.
I don't know why that made me think of it. Yesterday, when I was towing my car out to Wayne's shop, I stopped at there's a little Porsche service center that's right outside. It's down the street from where I live, because I realized I didn't have any crush washers for the oil drain plug, and I was taking Jamo some oil change stuff because it was time. So I stopped there trying to get the crush washers, and they had them, so it worked out fine. But man, those people, they are not very personable and nice. And maybe I expect too much, but when I pull in my trailer with my camo wrap 997, and no one even says anything, and it's hard to even find anybody to work there, I'm kind of like,
Well, at least they didn't ask you for make, model, and year.
Well, they eventually did.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
Is that a 4-door?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I ordered the cams for my car, the Porsche dealership was like, we need the VIN number.
And you're like, okay.
So I sent them your VIN number, Todd. And
Oh,
because I didn't know what else to do, because my car isn't a GT3, it's a turbo, but I'm ordering GT3 parts, and you try explaining that to the guy at the parts counter.
you want to do what?
Yeah.
They always tell me it's a horrible, terrible idea. And then, a couple
What
of
you do?
years later, they're like, "Wow, everybody's doing this. What you should run ethanol in your car. I hear it's great." Same thing happened when I was putting the car together originally. The local place, Roof Auto Center, RAC.
Roof.
I brought my stuff in, and I wanted them to change plugs and put the bigger injectors in for me, because note to everybody: never ever try to install injectors in a 911 turbo 997 or later without dropping the engine. Yeah, that's just a public service announcement. It's probably the most awful thing I've ever done with a car. They laughed at me though at Roof. They said, "What, you're gonna do that? Oh man, that never works. That's a terrible idea. You shouldn't do that." And then I was back in there like a couple of years later for something else, and they were asking me, about my car, and of course didn't remember anything from previous, which was probably for the best. And told me that what I should really do is run ethanol in my car, because it works great with turbocharged engines. It really allows you to run more boost and more power. And I just kind of smiled at him. I was like, "Yep, guys, yeah, you made fun of me for that 2 years ago, but now it's okay.
Now it's cool. Okay.
Yeah, okay."
But that's how, man, some of the Porsche shops out there, they just they don't get into the modifications, right? And they think modifications don't work, and it's never going to work, and we're just going to do what Porsche's done, and the engineers at Porsche, you could never do anything better.
Well, they're
I hear
right.
that all the time.
Well, first of all, yeah, they're right.
They're right, but it comes down to these trade-offs that we've been talking about.
Exactly.
Earlier, right? Like, we're willing to make some trade-offs to make it happen.
Yeah.
And I can't think of any other car that you can buy like these that you literally don't have to change every nut and bolt on the car in order to make this kind of power. Like the R8s and the Lambos are kind of in that category. There's some other ones over the last few years that have started moving more in that direction. But I mean, you take a GTR, you might as well just go to Home Depot and start buying some bolts, because everything has to be upgraded on that car. It's silly.
Boy, but when they do.
Whew, yeah, it's not cheap,
Yep.
but man,
There
go.
are some fast GTRs out there.
Well, they're faster than us.
Yeah.
In general for a straight line, but
That guy that hangs out with us at Shift Sector, Jeff.
Mhm.
oh yeah,
White
he's a cool
GTR.
guy.
Yeah,
I like that guy.
he's a cool guy, and he built that thing himself, and it's a relatively mild build, and he puts up some really good numbers.
Yeah. What did he do? 215?
I want to say he ran 215. Yeah.
215.
Yeah, 214, 215. Man, I had a knot in my stomach when he heard it on the final.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I felt so bad
Me
for the
too.
guy.
Yeah, sure, Taylor. You were the one running against him, and you actually beat him when he broke.
I
Poor
felt
guy.
so bad, but I guess that's
No, you're right. That's impressive. He's doing that work himself. Absolutely.
I bet we see him again this year.
You think he'll have it all fixed up?
Oh, I'm sure. He took it well. He took it like a man. He was like, yeah, it's broke. I knew it was going to break
It was about
eventually.
time. Yeah. Yeah, he should be out there. I think he lives near the Kansas venue, right? He lives in KC, maybe.
Yeah, he's Kansas City. That's right.
well, and he was what, in Indy and Kansas with us? Did he come? He didn't come to Abilene though. Well, no, because his car
He was broken. Yeah. Thank you for listening to So You Think Your Car is Fast. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube at So You Think Your Car is Fast. Also, subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Todd's Instagram is Black Horse Turbo. Dan's is Rix997 with an X. And Taylor's is Stelove_cars.